I love this music. Yay. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Stories Unveiled. And today we've got another amazing guest joining us all the way from Morocco, the wonderful John Muller, I think. My Aussie accent maybe.
Muller. Either
Muller,
way
thank
is fine.
you. Thank you, John. My Aussiness there, I'm just going to claim that. And beautiful Flea and I, we love chatting with amazing people, leaders, mentors, facilitators, coaches, teachers from around the globe. And I love the beautiful rooster in the background. I feel very, empowered by that. And Flea, how are you feeling? For us, it's afternoon, and John, it's in the morning.
Oh, it's been a busy day. It's very hectic and very warm. So sitting here sweating. I'm early menopausal, so it's lovely. So I'll sit here touching myself a fair bit in inappropriate ways. I apologise, people. It's hot. It's Queensland. Anybody that's been here knows it's terrible. And it just is what it is, right? So we just have to go with it, and we are here, we are live, and we're just going to be as real as we can be. And I feel that this is probably what this show is most about, is just being real, just being who you are, true to your core, showing your passions, showing what you know and love, and just getting it out there into the world. So really, really grateful to have you on the show, John. Thank you very much for joining us.
Amazing. And John, thank you, John. We met, I think, last year at one of your amazing summits, Lights of the Round Table. And from then on, we've just been connecting, collaborating. I loved your energy, your vibe, and, just your authentic connection to bringing in amazing like-minded people and leaders into the work that you're doing. So John, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit more about you, and we'll dive more into your story.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, Marie and Felicia. So my story, I used to be a Buddhist monk, so that's like my main claim to fame, I guess. Before that, I was a professional counselor. I have a degree in psychology. I thought I was going to be a therapist, but I ended up getting really involved in Buddhism and meditation and spiritual kind of stuff. And I just took that track. I decided to drop out of graduate school, and I became a full-time meditation teacher within Buddhism. They kind of gave me my own center. I became the teacher. I trained the other teachers. I designed the spiritual program, and I did that for a while. And before that, I did a long retreat. So my main skills are really in the art of transformation from within. That's really my thing, and I use the mind. And Buddhism is all about the mind. I have a sort of natural gifts with psychology, and it's actually kind of cool because most of the people that I meet online, at least the ones I try to collaborate with, are the opposite, right? They use energy. It's all about healing. There's all these different ways in to ourself, right? To work with ourself, and energy is one, and the mind is another, and they both work. And I just learned the mind, and the energy follows, right? That's what I learned, and it definitely does work. So starting in like kind of the end of 2017, when I was like a full-time teacher, I was realizing that I could reach more people and I could create more abundance for myself if I just put my work online in business format rather than just doing it as like I was basically like a glorified volunteer. Like if you think about it there, like it wasn't really a job because I wasn't actually getting like a paycheck. It wasn't like just a volunteer because I was getting a stipend and all my bills were covered. They paid for every bill that I had, including housing, gas, food, cell phone, all my spiritual trip.
Wow.
And so like I was taken care of for sure, but I had reached my ceiling and I couldn't go any higher. And for some reason that really bothered me because I'm a little bit of like a high performer, I guess. And so I thought like I was doing a good job at like bringing more students into the center. I wanted to like do more, reach out further, and there was no possibility of like earning more, but I was in a very affluent town, and I was like, I kind of like this. I think I would enjoy, earning more if I produce more. And so I started figuring out how to do online business, copywriting, marketing, funnels, ads. And that took me on this whole journey. And I sort of ended up falling in love with the psychology of marketing and opened up a
Mm.
marketing agency and then later launched my own spiritual coaching business, blah, blah, blah. Here I am today. And I kind of call myself a conscious leadership coach, is like a thing that I would say. But yeah, that's been some of the journey so far.
Fascinating.
Love those titles that I think I'd call myself this. Yeah, at the moment, I think I'm this. I was trying to figure that out yesterday. It's like, what would I call myself now? And that it was like, oh, I'm just happy. That's fine. I'll just go with
I like
happy.
that.
That's my title. It's the
That's a
easiest
good one.
one, but yeah, that I was like, I really like the conscious coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what a journey you've had, John, as well. Like, it's so fascinating to talk with different people and look at, what led them to different paths. And so, with Buddhism, what what initiated you into like going down that path in the first place? So obviously you would have done this like out of high school because you dropped out of school. Like what
I'm
was
a,
it that was like, "Oh, try this out"?
mm, yeah, I dropped out of graduate school. That's
Graduate
like,
school, sorry.
mhm.
Yeah.
I have a bachelor's. I even went back to school after I got my bachelor's degree for engineering. I decided to
Yeah,
switch.
cool.
Um, yeah, so what got me into Buddhism? I think what happened was in college, right before I graduated with my degree in psychology, my last year, I had a bit of like a spiritual awakening, you can say, right? I had stopped smoking pot, is one of the things that happened, and I just for some reason my spiritual potential just started to ripen, right? It was like all the clouds lifted and my spiritual potential started to grow. And I just had these things happen that year, including I started getting interested in, well, I started applying the psychology very deeply to myself. And I had a girlfriend at the time who was very interested in me realizing some of the things I needed to work on. And so that was good. But I ended up finding other spiritual things, other spiritual texts, including a book on Buddhism. And
Mm.
that book kind of blew my mind open and it really resonated very deeply. And I felt like at the time, I thought like parts of my brain that I've never used before are becoming awakened or whatever. But yeah, I was receiving blessings. And I think I have a connection from a previous life or from previous lives with Buddhism in particular. But that book,
Mm.
what it did was it got me to become very interested in spiritual things. And I started going to the bookstore and buying books on everything, including Buddhism, but lots of other things too. And I got deeply into Paramahansa Yogananda's work. You know, the guy who does Self Realization Fellowship. He wrote autobiography guy. So I got into his thing, that lineage, Zen Buddhism, other things. And one of the books that what happened was I realized what I really want is a teacher. I want to learn from somebody who's got all the experiences that I want. Someone who's already kind of completed the path or they're just like fully actualized or whatever. Like I want that teacher. And so I was going to the bookstore, but what I was actually looking for was that. And one of the
Mm.
books had a picture on the back of it. And I was like, the guy looked so happy and so free. And I was like, I want to learn how to be happy from this guy. And it turns out his book was called 8 Steps to Happiness. And
Mm.
founded the temple that I ended up moving to later, right? But I didn't know that at the time. And I just took this book and I'm like, this guy is so joyful. And I just like practiced it. And it was working for me. and the words were completely like you couldn't argue with them. It was like so clear. And I was working, I was practicing it, and then I kind of life happened. I put it down, but later, when I was working my full time job as a substance abuse counselor, one of my clients is the one who said, "Hey, it looks like you like spiritual things. You like Buddhism. There's a temple 15 minutes away from here. It's like a world-renowned temple. It's very beautiful. You should go check it out." And it turns out his best friend's mom was a nun there, and so I was like, okay, I was like, that sounds good. So I checked it out and I basically never left. It was just what I was looking for. And it was founded by the same person who wrote the book, which I didn't figure out until later. But it had planted all the seeds. The book planted all the seeds within me. So like when I was there, I was able to go with everything. It kind of worked for me. And so that's kind of how it got started. Yeah.
Amazing. I got goosebumps listening to that. All of these synchronicities, and like you said, all the seeds. And it's people that are awakening now are probably, coming across this podcast and show that are meeting people like yourself, Lee, or me, or other people as well. And so this is what drove us to create this platform to share more of these stories, because it just starts with a book sometimes. It starts with maybe an idea from somebody who may be conscious or maybe unaware. So, yeah,
Mm.
Flea, what would you add to that?
It's interesting because we've heard from a few different people, and like this morning we were talking about like the shadow being like the lowest of lows, and just really in this feeling within yourself that there's more, that there's something else, and that for whatever reason, life isn't what it's meant to be, or life isn't what you expected, or maybe it is and you're unfulfilled. And it seems to be like this shadow type moment that throws us all into this awakening. And one of those things for me was, it was just this realization one day that all of the texts are correct. Every single thing we read is correct. And it's like, it's just the language, it's just the interpretation. You take it to, if you were to sit in any situation or any position around the world, it would all make sense if it was just put into their context. And for me, that was the big, well, if everything is right, if all of this information is correct, well, there has to be more. And it was in that like very simple moment, it was like, that's it. I've got it. I've worked it out. Like that's all it was. I didn't work it out. It was far from it. It was just the very beginning. But it was that little seed, like you said, John, and it was like, oh yes, I need to know more now. And it takes you down some very weird and interesting paths. Some of the drawings and stuff that I do, I'm like, I don't even know what this is for, but okay, yep, I've worked that out too, and it's there for somebody else. And, as you said, like those coincidences or synchronicities that just put you in the right place at the right time. And that's just magical. I just love this type of stuff and how it all comes together. And you can't deny the little
Yeah.
signs afterwards. It's like, oh yeah, I saw this, this, and this. Absolutely.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add to that is like I didn't mention the part about the deep suffering I was going through, right? And so like by the time like I was invited to go to this temple, I had many months of deep existential suffering. Life felt meaningless. I was stressed out. Like all that stuff was really happening too. And I had also let go of all these other things in my life. Like I had moved back into my hometown. That was where that job was, kind of, or that's where I was living. And I had, because I was a substance abuse counselor, but all my friends still either drank or smoked, and I couldn't be friends with any of them. I had all my connections I had made when I went to college. And so my hometown had nothing for me, really. I had nothing to do. And so I had space in my life, nothing in it. I had nothing going on at all, a lot of suffering. I had a breakup that had happened many months before that. And I had been deriving my self worth, some of it from the girl. She saw me in this really good way. And so I saw myself in that really good way. But then later, not only did she not see me as anything, she actually started to hate me after a while, after we were broken up. And so I didn't know how to see myself. I was like, I don't even know who I am. Right. And so I had all that stuff. and then the invite to the temple. And I had just this massive need, but massive space to go in for it. So the story is like, when I showed up at the temple, they were like, hey, look, we're actually starting a whole month of retreat right now. Today's the intro class for an entire month of retreat. I was like, hey, I'll go to it. And I loved it. It was just what I was looking for. And I just went back the next day, to get more retreat sessions. And 3 weeks in, I was like, hey, I want to move here. I saw other young people living there. I was like, can I live here? And 2 weeks later, I was in. And so I lived there for 4.5 years, became a monk halfway through. And like, I just was able to dive so far into that lifestyle because I had the space, because I had the need, and I had all the seeds within me already, I guess. And so I think suffering is really meaningful for someone who knows how to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And a previous guest, we talked about, again, these moments of catalyst where it's like you feel like you're like Christ getting resurrected, being crucified and going through the suffering and going through the humanness
Why me?
and the experience. Yeah, and when you're in it, like it's like, yeah, why me? Why is this all happening? But then it's like now we can reflect back later and go, well, what a gift. What a gift that was to understand that depth of emotion, that range of our humanness, and have now a capacity to help others through that, and like yourself, the seeds within Flea and I have been cultivated in our careers and teaching and education and the life experiences we've had, and really integrating that shadow work, the suffering, and loving and appreciating and acknowledging and surrendering to those parts of self and self mastery. And you mentioned the word mastery before. And so, what I suppose have you noticed in your own journey in the development of where you were then and who you have become now and continue to become, and this mastery journey? Like, I'd love for you to dive into, it's a big concept, but I'd love for you to share your insights on that.
Okay, it's a good question. Well, one thing I can say is I have some experience in the teaching world. My dad is a teacher. He was a very good teacher. I think he did it for a long time. And I was doing some substitute teaching. One of the part-time jobs I got at the temple, I needed to support myself while I was there, was substitute teaching in schools, which is very interesting work. But like, what that taught me was something that I think is worth mastering, is like applying spiritual teachings in your everyday life, right? And I've focused a lot on that. That's one of the main focuses of the Buddhist tradition that I was part of, and it's something that, have I mastered it? I don't know if I've mastered it, but I think, compared to most people, I've mastered it to a pretty good degree, right? It's like, how do you keep it alive? Is spiritual practice something that happens over here, and your life is something that happens over here, right? When you meditate, are you trying to cut yourself off from the world, and then when you're in the world, you just live your normal life trying to succeed or whatever? You have to mix them. They have to be the same thing. That's what my tradition talks about. Is like, they're the same thing. Your spiritual practice is your life. Your life is your spiritual practice. When you meditate, you bring your life in and you meditate on your actual life. And you get shifts to happen in your life that are preparatory, basically, for what is going to happen, right? Or at first it happens in hindsight. At first you're like, God, I got really angry. Let me meditate on that to see what happened. What were my expectations involved? What was I holding on to? And you meditate in hindsight on your life, but eventually you're able to do it in the moment. As something's unfolding, you can see and self-correct and be like, oh, I'm holding on to this expectation, or blah, blah, blah. Angry, for example. And so, but then also you can do it in preparation. You can be like, hey, I know I'm doing this great interview. Let me prepare so that I can actually have my spiritual tools working for me while I'm talking to them, because why not, right? And so that's one way it happens. And then the other way it happens is like, when you're in your life, you have to be able to remember and utilize all your spiritual tools. You have to know what tool works in what situation, and how do you use them, and how do you stack them so that it's more advanced. Like, that's a beautiful mastery level practice that everyone should do, I think.
I love how you brought it back to the heart. It's like, yeah, you have to love it, you have to live it, and that is mastery. And this is one of the concepts that I just love talking into, because this is why we created Awæcnian Academy, is to bring about this awareness of just being in your element, like whatever that might be, whatever brings you the most joy is what you will master in, because you can't not. If you love it so much, you just continually want to improve and to just get better at it. And with that improvement, you're always finding new ways, you're always advancing, and it's always joyful because you're doing the thing you love the most. And I believe that when we actually have people that are in their joy, as a receptor, as the person receiving that gift, it is so impactful to just go, wow, like, look at the way this thing was made, and it was made with so much love and care and detail. And you can't help but be in awe and be in gratitude of that beautiful gift. And I feel that this is one of those like major demons of today's society, is that when we're faced with so much commercialism and product that is just null and void, it's just pretty much off the shelf market bullshit, to be blunt. It's real crap. We start to depreciate on what we love and devalue our things. And I've seen so many people, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's cheap, don't worry about it, it's old. And it's like, but it belongs to you. Like, these are your, like, do you not love your possessions? And I've started to notice that the more Kmart products I buy, the more I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really care so much about it. But it's the little things that you go back that have been made with love, that have been like beautiful little pencil case I've got behind on my wall there, that a little student made at a homeschooling expo. It's like, it's just so beautiful because it was made with so much care and love. And that there is a story I'm going to have for life, or as long as I have the pencil case anyway. But it's that mastery, that love that goes into it, and having that story that goes with it is phenomenal. Thank you so much for talking into that so that I could have my little rant.
Yeah, and that embodiment of it being a daily practice, like, that's that mastery of self in those moments, in those micro moments where we can catch ourselves, I think is really powerful when our awareness starts to expand of our emotional state. And I found through the breath, coming back to the breath, coming back to noticing when my heart rate is going fast, if I'm in heightened conversations, noticing, how I can calm my body in those micro moments to like listen to the reflections back at me. Because if we are all God and we are all source and we are all one, then whatever is being shared with me is also a gift from God in some way or another. Whether their emotional state is heightened, maybe they're not as aware. And I'm thinking of other family members perhaps that, and noticing my internal state to be able to shift that. I've shifted whole conversations or potential arguments into resolution. And the past version of me would have gone, the little girl that was scared in the past, the young woman that would just cry because it's like, poor me, he's angry at me, or my mum is just blah, blah, blah. The victim mentality, seeing those, the micro in the self, in the heart, in the body, then impacting the macro and those relationships has, has taken years of noticing, years of going in, the suffering, the reflection. So, John, people that are experiencing these moments of awareness and awakening in their synchronicities, or even in their body, or even noticing things, what's your, I suppose, your advice for folks that may be listening in who are like, this is really resonating deeply, and they're noticing these things, but they're still feeling a little bit stuck, or like feeling we spoke about resistance with another guest. Like, what's your advice for people that are maybe in those moments of stuckness, ickiness, but are aware and in this evolutionary awakening. I'd love to hear your insights.
Okay, thank you for that question. Well, the first thing to do, I think, is to find a group of people who are already practicing these things, because we need a group, we need a community. You can't just do it on your own. It's just not really going to work. Like, I don't know. Spiritual community is part of all spiritual practices. Talk about having spiritual communities, and it's just well understood that your growth will be very accelerated when you have a spiritual community with you, and not just accelerated, it's kind of like a necessary element for support, right? We need to be able to lean on people. We need to see the teachings come to life within another person before we can see them come to life in ourselves. We have to see other people who are living it, who are actualizing it. Doesn't mean they've completed it, doesn't mean they're perfect, but it means they have similar experiences, and they're gaining them, and they have some that we don't have, and they rub off on us. You sort of absorb some of these things, right? Just like hanging out in front of the TV, you become a consumer because that's what they program you to be. If you hang out in spiritual circles, you'll be programmed to become a spiritual practitioner, right? And you'll start thinking and doing the same things that they do, which means you'll get the same results they have. So that's the first important point. That's what I did. I just plugged into something, not thinking that I'm special or that I have any special power within myself. I was just like, I am limited in terms of how much I can practice on my own. I have a small capacity. I get very distracted. I fall asleep when I try to meditate. But if I put myself in these chanted prayers and in these meditation classes all the time, and I hang out with spiritual people all the time, I'm plugging into a power that's already there, and it takes me up. And eventually, I became the one at the prayer circle, at like the prayer circles and ceremonies and stuff, that was like holding the energy for the group that other people could plug into. But that took years, right? At first, I was the little one who had no power, no experience, and I plugged in, and I was filled up by their energy, by the energy they were holding. So that's the easiest way. That is incredibly easy in terms of like, if you do it, it works without having to be special or smart or anything. So that's the first one, I would say. Resistance is a whole nother topic. That's a beautiful topic within itself, too.
But yeah, that sense of community. Yeah. Oh, look, we could definitely talk a whole other hour on resistance. But yeah, that sense of community that you spoke about. Every one of us. Yeah. What are those cards for? I'd love for you to share. What came up with those
The
cards?
discontent and boredom. So discontent and boredom, which is a number 4, usually to do with, our home life and our families and all the things that we just not really seeing. And then the emotional withdrawal, which you touched on before. It's, we do tend to get to a certain point and then get stuck. And that stuck stage of like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've just been fantasizing the whole time and all these coincidences and synchronicities are incorrect. And I feel that like those 2 phases are almost your shadow side and your spiritual journey as it comes into play. Like that discontent and boredom is almost what starts it. It's like, this is not for me. I need more. I want more. There is more. There's a better way. There has to be a better way. And you go through this, the passion ignited that come out straight after. It's like, yes, I've got this new way of doing things. I've got this new group of friends that are right into this new way, and the vibration is high and everything is great.
Yeah.
And then you hit a plateau sort of thing, and it's like, oh, what now? Like, I've disconnected from everything so much. I've like stripped all of my shadow side, and I'm down at the very bottom of the darkness, and yeah, I'm a new person. I get to choose my life. Oh, hang on a sec. I still have to live life. I still have to be in the reality. I still have to be in the 3D. Like this is that emotional withdrawal that we just sit there and go, how do I just get past this step? That step, I feel, is the one that everybody gets stuck on, and it's one of those phases that you either find something that really just makes that next step move, or you almost, I'm hoping it doesn't stop. I'm hoping that comes in, but that stuck feeling is. Did you experience that, John?
Of emotional withdrawal, like getting stuck in emotional withdrawal.
Yeah.
Is that
Or like
Yeah.
flee, like rising, but then plateauing. And then it's like,
Oh yeah,
when you feel a
I
high
think
five
it's
and then you
normal.
plateau.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Like I think the obstacle there isn't the plateau; it's the expectation that the journey should be smooth.
Mm.
Right? The
Mm.
expectation is actually the
That
problem
ego.
because it's always going to be. My teacher told me he's like it's always going to be the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's your life,
Mm.
right? That's your spiritual journey. You're gonna do that and just keep trying to. What we try to do in Buddhism is called effort. You maximize joyful effort, right? Effort is like application of the things that you know you should do, right? You apply them joyfully with faith, right? Consistently, but you learn how to do it in a way that doesn't lead to burnout, where you're putting your
Mm.
all your best energy forward like a river that runs day and night constantly. You learn how to make your energy like this, where it doesn't get dissipated and go off track, and it stays on track, but you
Mm.
don't burn out. That's a high level
Mm.
practice too, and it requires learning to release expectations about the journey, and you just have to fall in love with the process. You have to surrender to the process. You have to release all outcomes and you just go for it and you try to check, am I practicing correctly? The things that I know lead me to the right place eventually, and you just keep at it no matter whether you get results or not. It's not about results. We don't get results. Results happen so much later than what we think, especially when you're trying to awaken, right? The journey of awakening. Look, I lived at a temple in the middle of the woods for 5 years in a spiritual community with a teacher who's literally probably fully awakened. He did a 5 year silent meditation retreat. This guy was the most amazing person that I've ever met, right? And there's many amazing teachers
Mm.
too. It wasn't just him. But like I was there for 5 years. Trust me, it's
Wow.
about planting seeds and learning to be a happy farmer. You just plant seeds, you have to love it. You have to fall in love with the
Mm.
process because results are not coming when you think they're coming. They're coming much later than when you think they're coming, and they're coming when you relax. Results come when you
Yeah.
relax and when you rest,
Mm.
not when you're putting the effort in. And so that's a mindset shift that has to happen, and it's relevant for entrepreneurs too.
Mm.
Entrepreneurs also need to learn how to plant seeds without worrying about outcomes. It's the expectation that blocks the result, and it's the expectation that makes us upset when we don't get results. So that's the
Mm.
obstacle.
Yeah. That's so
I like
powerful.
that. That was a really beautiful, sorry, a really beautiful shift, I guess, to the gratitude theory that you hear a lot. It's like, oh yeah, just practice gratitude, but that releasing of expectation and just,
Mm.
you know, placing your energy in joy. I like the way that sounds. That analogy worked really well for me. Thank
Yeah,
You're
that
welcome.
landed.
you.
It reminded me, John, of like a moment in my life where I just finished university. My husband Sean and I had just bought this house, and I'd like got a promotion, and it was like when we moved in, we were just hitting our 30s, and it was like that relax, and it was like, okay, the desire to like, okay, let's have a child now, and let's, it just happened. We released it, like I just let go, I relaxed, everything that led up to that moment. And then I became pregnant, and we've got our beautiful daughter Aya from that experience, and it was just that relaxation in the body, and again another level of mastery of self at that phase. And there were more lessons and learnings, and but it just reminded me of that moment of relaxing. And when we think about, women's work, and I know you work with a lot of women as well in the fields that you're connected with, you know all of us as humans can stress so much, but women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the mother or to perform in a certain way, and the martyrdom and doing everything for others. But that simple, just release, allow, let go, relax, that being in the joy. I think we need just more reminders of that, because it's so easy, but yet we sometimes think it's really hard because we're in that state of worry, and we're thinking about either the past or the future and not being present in like the now. And yeah, I just wanted to share that story because it reminded me of that part of my life. And even like the learnings from initiation of parenthood. Again, the trials and tribulations that came along with that, and then another layer of going deeper into self and body, and then awakening into another layer of what it is to be woman, the feminine energy, the masculine energy, what I was doing. Like, I went into burnout, I went into anxiety and depression, again, with the expectation of it's time to have another child. Everyone's saying it's time, my mum's saying it, this is happening. And then my whole body and my whole universe went into more suffering and trauma and unexpected miscarriage that I now see as a gift. And in that moment of suffering, though, that was transformative, that it allowed me, like you said, to empty and release, and to allow that numbness, allow the suffering and the feeling that was suppressed, the expectations of what it is to be woman, to be mother, to be all these things that society had put on us, and to allow myself to surrender into deep rest, because I didn't. I was go, 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 heavily like doing everything for everyone else, for the kids, for the school, for blah, blah, blah. And my body forced me to surrender in a way that was unexpected. So yeah, I'd love to share, I suppose, these unexpected moments that we as humans experience. And like, have you had any moments like that, that have been like, wow, that was really powerful for my life, my experience? I just had to surrender to without any choice.
I mean, I'm in one right now, to be honest. Yeah, I love what you're saying. Yeah, I'm in one right now. I think. I mean, when I moved to Morocco about 7 months ago, right? Because I met a beautiful woman that I wanted to kind of get married to, which we did about 6 months ago. Thank you. That's a whole nother just part of my spiritual journey. It's like I learned how to be spiritual and live in the world with first without relationships, and then with relationships is a whole nother thing. But now I'm married, and so like you can't run away from that, right? Which is a technique I used to use before, and so that's a whole different avenue that I'm really learning to practice in, which is nice. But the whole non-surrender thing is mostly because when I first moved here, I didn't know how long I was going to be here. I thought it was going to be short, and I decided to wait until she gets like approved for her visa to come back to the U.S. And so we don't even know how long it's going to be, right? That's one of the best times to surrender, is when you just don't even know how long you're going to be in it. In fact, trying to know about the end point makes it hard to surrender, right? If you think, oh, it's only going to be this long, you don't have to surrender. You can just carry on. But if you have no idea, if it might go on forever, you don't even know, you have to surrender. And for me, the hard part was about work and my professional identity, because I always overcompensate for lack of either skill or just whatever I'm doing. I overcompensate by like producing more. I can just promise more. I can be more. I can do more. I can have more classes, more calls. I can show up more, and so I do that. And I like to be professional. I like to be extremely reliable. I like to go over the top, over deliver. And when I got here, the internet connection was literally so bad, I couldn't even upload a PDF onto onto anything. I couldn't even send a PDF to somebody, right? I couldn't. The internet was so bad, I couldn't even use my computer. I had to use my phone for everything, and I bought data, but it was like there was a giant lag. And now I didn't even realize that I could get high speed internet here at first. There was all these things that I just like um, couldn't do because I didn't have that at first, and I had to surrender my identity of being professional. I had to surrender all these like loose ends of projects I had started. Like I had to let a lot of things go and just be okay with the person who I am, who's not doing all those things, and finding contentment within myself of just like, I am who I am, and I don't need to be productive to be valid or whatever. So like that's been cool. And I've been able to pick up some pieces now and get a bunch of cool things started again, which is fun, but I'm not doing it from a place of need in terms of knowing who I am. It's from a place of service mostly of like, here's what I'm going to create because I'm totally fine within myself. And also I'm going to create these things. It wasn't to validate
Mm.
myself. It's to help
Mm.
others, which is way better.
Yeah.
So that's, surrender gives us things that we never could get by ourselves. There's other times too where I've done this, but this is the most recent one.
Yeah, powerful,
Mm.
powerful. And it's that noticing of those times, and even with the internet, I could see Flea going, "Yep, I had to surrender." And some days she's like, "I can't do it, Marie," and it's like, "Okay." She's like, "I've just been sitting at this computer and the frustrations, because she lives out in a more rural
And I
area."
live in suburbia.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
When we
makes no.
notice,
It's a rural block in suburbia, but crazy.
yeah, yeah. But even just noticing those pieces that the resistance is coming through and the frustrations. Like I know, like with Flea, she's just like, "No, this is my day off. I will speak to you later." I'm like, "Okay, on that, you're doing you and you're grounding in your energy." And she honors my energy too, and knowing yourself and how your energy works and how others work as well in that compassion, I feel is something that, again, not many people know about, because again, those expectations of, in the workplace, maybe you expect people to show up a certain way. And yeah, I found even in this entrepreneurial journey and meeting amazing people that have different ways of embodying and understanding energy and how they're showing up in the world has brought through a lot of divine patience. And that, they say patience is a virtue. And oh, what's that one, Flea? Patience.
Patience. Patience. They just
Yeah,
unfold. I put out a spread and they just unfold. I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's like, yep, that's what that one's for. There you go.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah. And
patience.
like yourself, yeah, it's beautiful, right? And like yourself, John, releasing, but also coming back to those relationships that you've planted seeds with. And I know we were chatting last year before things shifted, and it's like holding people in that deep honor and respect. And it's like, well, if the time is right to reconnect, it'll happen, and then things will unfold. And I know even what we're creating and co-creating, and I'm going to bring Flea into it as well at some point too. It's like bringing all of these like-minded people and these leaders together. We both have a very similar vision that I know we've spoken about before with the work you're doing and with what Awæcnian Academy is doing. And there are many pockets around the world where leaders, light workers, everyday people like you and me who are stepping into this higher version of themselves. So I know you've also connected with amazing people around the world. So what is it that you're currently working on to bring like this vision that you have together? I'd love for you to share something that you're excited to share with the audience as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. So the current thing, there's more that I would love to add to the topics you were just bringing up about expectation and roles in society and burnout and stuff. I think that's really cool. Um, but yeah, the thing I'm putting together right now is called Align into Abundance Mastermind Portal, and it's like a low ticket and mid ticket monthly membership that allows us to learn from amazing people and speakers and healers and coaches. And I'm all about collaboration. Because of the spiritual community thing, I realized like everyone's got medicine for everybody else, and one coach is not just like all of us. Yes, we can become divine channels, but that we have our own particular interface. And some students like receiving from people who are of a certain way. And so like sometimes we have a hard time receiving from one person, even if they have what we need. And so I find it's really nice to have multiple coaches, multiple healers, all involved in the same thing. Everyone with and then students can find the person that they resonate with the most and or learn from people in their particular specialties, right? And so some people like to do manifestation and wealth creation from within without having to learn too much about the business side of things, right? And some people like to learn the marketing strategies and all that kind of stuff too. And so I like to be able to provide everything, and then people can. It's like a buffet. You can come and take what you want, and when you find the mentor who's right for you, you'll know, and you can decide to work with them more privately or whatever if you want to, or just go deep on this platform that we're creating. So that's kind of what I'm making right now. It's really cool. We're actually going to launch it next month in a soft way, and then more publicly in April. And so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's part of my life's mission. I would say is to create a platform. That's what I'm learning about myself. Is like I'm better as a platform provider and as a connector and a community kind of creator and leader than I am as like I'm a good coach, but like it's not my mission because there's lots of other people who are amazing coaches and healers who could actually do the same things I'm kind of doing as a coach, if that makes sense. I know myself,
Yep.
and I know the students, and I know how it's working. I'm not irreplaceable as a coach. I know that. I'm very aware that I'm not irreplaceable. If I were to disappear and never coach again, the world would carry on and people would find what they needed. That's true. But what I can do that other people aren't doing, that I can do better, is provide a platform and create this space of connection. I'm good at that. That's something that I can see that I know other people are doing things like that, but I have a unique way and unique thing that I think I'm bringing to it. And so that's something that I want to see created that is it's worth doing. It's bigger than myself. And I've learned the skills to make it happen, including how to structure collaborations properly and all these things. That's my mission, and so my network is full of all the right people to be the coaches and healers of this thing, and I'm just bringing them all on board bit by bit right now. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Amazing. It's so aligned, isn't it, Flea, to what we're creating?
Collaboration, yes. We can't do it
Yeah.
all. We're only one person, but we can definitely create a community that is fulfilling and has the people that we need. Because if I need it, it means somebody else does, right? So what better way than to be able to join with people where you know, okay, I am going to find what I need in this space. And it's absolutely beautiful and such remarkable work to be able to, one, recognize the gifts of others, but to support and help them grow is even more phenomenal in itself. That you can see that through that collaboration, through that is how we all succeed. It creates that
Yeah.
family network, which is 100% what we also wish to see within this world, a place where we know we're getting the quality of care that we actually need and require, and the connections.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And like yourself, John, like that mission to it feels like to create the platforms like you said and the spaces in co-creation with others and collaboration in connection, all these amazing c words. Both Flea and I were drawn to this work, and it was like a calling, again another c word, for us to connect and to bring, yeah, that card again, and to bring it forth, because like yourself, when there are groups of us around the world that have this vision and alignment, when we get to partner and collaborate with like people like yourself around the world, it's really powerful. And this is how we change paradigms. And I've said this before, we're here to bring in the new earth, and we're here to bring in a frequency and an energy where it's not only for us now as the bridge makers and the people that are taking the courageous steps to create new ways and old ways to fit within the
Mm.
context of how our humanity and our youth and our people are learning and shifting through, but being able to connect with people like yourself. And I know Flea and I having that base in the youth and with teenagers and the women's work we're doing as well. It's like, well, if we have young entrepreneurs and young men and women who want to, like you said, want to learn about marketing or want to learn about business, we could send them to you. You know, if there are young girls that want to, you know, become speakers and talk about, you know, whatever it is, fashion, or talk about what they're passionate about, or even have the courage to talk on social media and influence in that heart-centered way, then they could come to Flea and I for training, you know, and having that creative, heart-centered, authentic, soul-led work is what I've been playing with, as heartistry. This artistry and mastery of coming back to the heart and
Mm.
seeing this shift globally. So yeah, we're with you there, and we're again doing very similar things, but I feel, you know, there are other pockets of amazing people around the world that are going to be doing the things that we're doing, and we're going to be connecting the world in amazing ways, and that collaboration and reciprocity and learning and growth and evolution, like this is what excites me. And I know we've all had chats with this before, but bringing more of that. So I love what you're doing, and this is probably why, you know, we're still chatting and working and collaborating together. And when we bring more people into the fold, like Felicia, like the other amazing people that we're connected with, then the ripple effect, the seeds get to be planted to the nth degree, and it's like, what else can we do? Which,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's where my heart kind of lies. But to make that tangible, you know, is again the baby steps, right?
Yeah, we have to create it, and yeah, it's a big job, I think. So I love that. I want to kind of return to some of the other topics that you guys brought up before,
Yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah.
Do we
Please
have to?
do,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got time. Yeah.
Okay. And so one of the questions was about like burnout and like how do you move past a
Mm.
plateau and resistance. And I mean, I do kind of
Mm.
have an answer for that, right? Um, it can be helpful. We want to use faith is one of the main drivers, and fear as the other one. They say a special type of fear. And so
Mm.
you kind of like use faith, like it's a skill to like make yourself look forward, look at the good things, look at whatever the benefit is of the path that you're plateaued on or whatever that is, the process. And you have to see the benefit of it. You have to see that it's beautiful, it's pure, it has qualities that lead you where you want to go. You look at the end result that you're going for, and you're like, you get inspired by it. That kind of gets you to re-engage. Faith opens the mind. You
Mm.
can't be burned out and faithful at the same time, really, right? Not in that moment, right? The faith opens your mind, whereas burnout is kind of a closed mind, right? And so burnout is
Mm.
definitely real. But like what what we do when we plateau is we try to like reorient ourselves, re-engage with that path. And so the other motivator besides faith in Buddhism, they call it like wisdom fear, where you like look at like this sort of the dangers of staying the same. You look at the dangers of not doing it. You look at the
Yeah.
dangers of like, not engaging with this path, right? For example, if it's meditation, the danger would be like, well, I don't really grow in my spiritual practice. I don't have a happy mind. I don't,
Mm.
I'm likely to be negative and to snap at somebody or to be miserable or whatever. And so you're like, I don't want that, and you use that to kind of reorient yourself too. So you use fear and faith that, and you use compassion for others,
Mm.
and love for others, it's you do
Mm.
it for them, which is even more powerful. And you make decisions. You make decisions from this place, from these places, and your decisions are more reliable than your motivation. When you make decisions to do something, you just keep doing it because you decided to do it. You don't have to feel inspired every moment of doing something. If you decide I'm going to build this business, you make decisions from the right place, and you use those decisions to keep you moving forward. The decisions become like the banks of the river. They keep your energy flowing in the right direction. Inspiration does come and go. Motivation does come and go. It's not a reliable motivator all the time. It's a reliable source to make the right decisions, but then your decisions carry you forward. And so that's a practical way to do that, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amazing. And like I
Yeah.
said, you've now just put it in a tangible way, to like that faith that I've shared of like, I trust, but then knowing that the decisions I've made to agree with Flea that we're doing this, to chat with you, to then connect with people, to go out and do the things. Yeah, you've just brought it back into a really practical, tangible, realistic, bite-sized piece. And I think we've just lost. Oh, here he is. He's back here. So,
Yep.
yeah, bringing the big down into the tangible. What cards came up, Lee, as John was talking?
Oh, it was the positive movement forward and the truth or trust card. So as you were talking about that faith, I was just like, yep, the faith is in the trust. It's in the knowing. It's just making those little steps. And I love the way that you brought it all back together of the do it for them, do it for the ones you love, and do it with compassion, because that is really something that is very easy for everybody to do, to find, someone or some person that is less fortunate than themselves, to just be able to give
Yeah.
back. Like, even if you don't have people in your life right now, like, there is always somebody that you could give back to, that just makes everything that little bit more worthwhile, and to help you get past the fear, because the fear is the thing that pulls us back and almost makes us want to take control. It's like,
Yeah.
I've
Always.
got to have that way, and that's that expectation. So I've got to go back to control, and that control is what puts us in the stuck place in the beginning, I believe. So yeah, truth
Yeah.
and positive movements forward. This is what we're doing here. We're just bringing the truth and the light out into the world, so that everybody knows that, you're not alone, that we are all here trying to make the world better. And the more of us that can come together, the quicker that will happen. And yeah, I truly believe that this has been remarkable. Thank you.
I love that. You're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. And
Amazing.
can I bring one more point that I heard from before? The
Yes.
whole
Oh, sorry. Say that again.
oh, can I bring up one more point that I
Yes.
heard you say
Please do.
before?
Please do. Yeah. Oh, have we lost John? We've glitched a little bit.
Right as we
Um,
pause,
Oh,
we love
oh,
technology.
try that again,
No,
John. You're back. Amazing. Last
okay.
point.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, the last point was about you're talking about burnout and like the expectations on a woman mostly,
Mm,
but I think that happens to men too in other ways.
Yeah.
We have all these expectations of others that we're trying to live by, and of course we burn out. There's no fruit there. It's a fruitless path, right? And so that's why the spiritual
mm,
path is so good,
mm,
because it's a fruitful path. But other normal paths in society are fruitless. And so, if we're living by
mm,
the expectations of others, we will not get what we want at the other side of it. But we don't know that. Men put themselves into the world of work super hard a lot of times, and they have
mm,
expectations. I'm going to get what I want when I rise up the ranks or when I blah, blah, blah. And as a woman, as you mentioned, there's all these roles that you're expected to play, and what I've realized is either we're navigating based on other people's expectations, which doesn't work, or we're navigating based on our imagination of other people's expectations, which is even worse and even more dumb. But we do it, right? Not dumb, but like it's something that we
mm,
all get tricked by. We have our own ideas of what other people expect us to be, and we get burned out on any
mm,
fruitless path. Get something back. We receive. That's why we don't get burned out. But we get burned out when there's nothing there for us, and we just keep going, and we don't receive anything back. And so we have to make sure we're following paths that are fruitful and not fruitless. And other people imagined other people's expectations is one of the worst paths to go on. But that's what most people are following in their life.
Yeah. It makes me think of judgment, because we're thinking people are judging us, or we're thinking that this is going to happen, and we get stuck in our own ego battles because we're thinking about the
mm.
things that we think other people are thinking about. And
The thinking,
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, and yeah, being able to again, notice, be aware of those thought patterns, being aware of the narratives, these societal roles, knowing people's energies, and like, and knowing that, like, that's not my energy, or they're not my thoughts, and being able to hone in and to then discern, to then make those aligned decisions that you were talking about down those paths and down the stream, which I feel is such a beautiful analogy. I loved that. And those insights to, noticing burnout, noticing those hard battles we can have with our own mind, that we can shift with awareness and practice and devotion, and that love it. And you said you got to love your choices and love the journey, and that's a deep, deep piece of devotion to self, with a capital S, and soul and spirit, and thus others, which is then the oneness and you know again, that could be a whole other topic we could talk about. But it's been so wonderful having you on, John. And if there are people listening, how can they find you and how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So the website is www.mastermindportal.com. There's a school community for that called Conscious Community. Yeah. What else? Instagram is Connecting Amazing People. Those are some of them. Yeah.
Amazing. And feel free to share them in the chat as well. And Flea, any final thoughts or summaries or card pulls that can summarize today's amazing
The
chat?
final card was just building a firm foundation was the final card that was left over. And this is with everything. The minute we have a structure that works for us, that's what you move with. You just keep going with what works for you. If it's meditation, if it's dance, if it's art or whatever, like all of these creative outlets and creative forms are the basis of us coming back to ourselves and coming in to source, into spirit, into our own energy and awareness. And it's in those spaces that I believe those firm foundations build a beautiful, beautiful home, like the structure.
I love that.
I've heard that if the work isn't working for you, it's working on you. Right. And so, like, if you're doing working for you, that means it's working on you. It means that you're building your foundation, you're building your skills. And so we just keep going, because the results come when we do it at a high enough level that it starts working for us, or when the seeds are planted. So yeah, it's interesting to just focus on foundations. If you build the right foundations, the results are easy.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Perfect way to end. Thank you so much for your time, John, and we're looking forward to connecting more with you soon. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.